Okay, oh, hang on a minute.
Recording in progress.
Okay, this is the September 2025 edition of the Chicago Computer Society's South Suburban Computer Club. And welcome to all. I would like to see a few more people in here, but that's their problem, not mine. Uh, we have a whole lot of change going on the last 3 months. I set up my handout article list. Uh, I thought I finished it as of Friday evening. Every day since then, I have been adding more and more articles to it, and I had pared it back Friday night, so now it's real long again. Probably the biggest handout I'll have. And I give you a piece of advice. Those of you who download the handout when I put it in chat, it behooves you to more than just look at the title of what the article or video is about and actually get into it at least a little bit to really get a proper sense of what it may contain, because I've got some in here that have some surprising golden nuggets, and I'm not joking when I say that. One of them I just added today out of 6 that gave me a tip that I've never heard before, but you may need it for one simple reason. In prior versions of Windows, there was always a way of not creating an attached Microsoft account. You can make a local account. And then they started turning the screws and making it tougher to make a local account instead of a Microsoft attached account. Well, in 25H2, without getting into one of my articles, actually it's a video, on my list, you don't know how to totally disable internet to simply make up a local account. Whether it's the very first time you're installing Windows 11 on a machine, or if it's a case of just trying to create a local standard account on your machine after initial setup. So that's one area. There's several articles that are also in there about debloating your Windows system if you want to. And for the first time in my handout, you will notice up front that I have a disclaimer and some advice, because using the debloaters and optimizers that are out there sound great, don't sound too draconian, but if you don't know what you're doing, you could hose your whole system. So I put in some sound advice at the beginning of this to try and make certain that people understand they have to. I create a separate disk and I will put it in a system, taking out the existing media, storage media, or disconnecting it so it doesn't run, and only have that test drive in, and then I do everything on that because it can't hose up the system. And then I can just practice with that until such time as I feel comfortable enough. I'll then go to my secondary system, the backup to my primary system, and I will attempt to do it there. And then maybe a week later, I'll do it on the primary, as long as I'm not running into any serious problems. And that has to be understood. there's a lot of real possibilities to slim down the stuff in Windows 11 you don't like or want on your system and optimize its performance. But that all comes with potential dangers of doing something incorrectly and hosing your system. That's why I also put in there making a full image backup before you do anything. Have the restore media necessary and know that it boots your system up so you can recover your backup. So this is new and the first time I'm putting such a disclaimer in, because I have not put that much out of debloating and optimizing the Windows 11, which also applied to Windows 10. And more people are interested in doing that, whatever reasons they may have. That's their own personal choice. They just have to know how to properly approach it, do it safely until they can do it on their real systems. Any comments regarding this particular change coming up here? Okay. All right. We're going to start off tonight with questions, other comments, observations of your own, etc. And who wants to be first? You're only 1 year old?
No, I just wanted attention.
Well,
The yesterday, the new version of Apple's operating systems came out, and I have an iPhone 12, which is the oldest model that could pick that up. And updating it was a little surprising because it first loaded from 18.2 to 18.6.2 to 18.6.7. And then after it updated to that, then you could go back and update into iOS 26. And because I have that was nobody mentioned that I've seen in the articles, but then I had to update my watch, and I had to update my iPods. Well, updating the watch, you have to make sure you have enough power. What I found is some of the power supplies that I normally update my watch or phone with weren't sufficient, unless they were a newer one, because it needed that extra power to be able to accept the update.
well, I'll give you a tip. I did have some articles the last 5 days that recommend not updating to iOS 26 on 12, 13, 14. They recommended only 15 and higher.
Well, I didn't find anything that didn't work, so
Well,
that's not necessary.
That's good.
On the other hand, what I did have is I got the watch to update, but then I had trouble with the iPods. Because they're Bluetooth, what I found is my computer has Bluetooth, and when the iPod wasn't then registered in between the update, my iPods kept trying to talk to my phone through my computer. And it kept going back and forth. But the solution was simply to reset the phone, and then everything was fine. So I'm trying to pass along this experience, and I haven't found any app that didn't still work. I use on the iPhone the note system, and I did see that if the note was very long, it had trouble scrolling down. But that was the only thing I didn't see. I saw that wasn't perfect as it was before the update. So
Well,
I just wanted to pass those things along.
at least you had good experience. It counters some of the comments I heard about in the last 5 days. Not to, recommending not to upgrade 12, 13, and 14 and only go 15 and higher.
Well, it doesn't mean that there aren't more features that the older versions don't get, that are part of the Siri things, but you don't notice it because you don't know they're not there.
Well, that's a good possibility, and if that's the case, that's a good thing that if it can't support on a 12, 13, or 14 some feature that's in the newer phones, that it doesn't try and install it and possibly hold your system.
Well, I'm sure if you have an 11 or before, it leaves you well behind, so you can't upgrade.
Well, it's also a case where I don't think they have certain hardware requirements that are minimum to install. Your 12 probably has the bare minimum requirements.
Well, and that was actually, I was surprised that they went back to the 12 to be able to update. I thought they'd limit it to the 13 because now they're on 17. But there must be enough people out there using it that they determined to support it. And for those extreme new AI features that they're trying to put in to the newest versions, it's like 17 or 16, everything still works as before.
Well, that's good to hear. I don't have, the only iPhone I ever had was 8, if I remember correctly. And that one did upgrade at one time to a higher version of the OS, worked for quite a while, and then all of a sudden, dead as a doornail. And even when I took it into a shop for evaluation, it turned out that there wasn't anything they could do with it.
Well, sometimes the oldest ones usually have battery problems and where the battery died. And of course, the Apple stores will upgrade you, will, replace a battery if that was a problem. But the newest feature that makes 26 look different is just what they call the glass, which basically is just a fog across the whole screen, and it's worthless and it doesn't improve anything at all. So if you have a background picture, you can't see it except when you turn your system on, because the fog across every screen when you're not opening an app hides it. So it wasn't an update that added a lot to the system.
I wonder what the purpose of that foggy looking screen. It might look different.
Well, that's their liquid glass that everybody spent all the time talking about.
Oh.
And I'm just pointing out that it's meaningless.
Well, I wonder if it's a case too that on your older phone, if you were on a 15, 16, 17 phone, it would show maybe something other than a milky screen that's showing up on your older device.
Well, of course, Apple has to pretend to come out with something meaningful, and this liquid glass thing is what they came out with, because they don't really have a new AI system that's valuable yet. So it makes it have a slightly different appearance, which is meaningless. I have another question if you want.
Whatever.
I had somebody who asked me lately that they want to upgrade to a new computer, and they asked me, what should the specifications be for a new PC? If you go to Best Buy or something like that.
That's subjective, because it depends on what you do on.
Well, not a gamer, just a
I
regular user.
understand, but even still, some people are doing some things that require a little more horsepower than other people. So I
So
would,
what would be the choices
well,
that
I
you would
mean,
suggest
you got
for
like
regular and a little more advanced?
you have Intel processors, i3, i5. Probably the way you're talking, I don't think they need a 7 or a 9. In AMD, Ryzen 3 and Ryzen 5 chips would probably work out for them. The minimum memory would probably be 16 gigs at least. The storage, 9 times out of 10, is going to be a terabyte on the machine, which most people don't need. They don't know what the heck they would ever fill it with. But at the same time, too, it's a case where this is what the manufacturers are designing them with, and you just have to accept that factor. Now, the other thing that comes up, you brought up Best Buy. I just heard yesterday that some people went into Best Buy to see what is available there. And basically, everything was old and out of date by and large. And when they talked to a person at Best Buy, the person just said, people aren't buying PCs. So bottom line, what they're showing is what they got in stock, and they're not getting newer equipment. And if you want what they are showing in stock, hopefully the price is way down compared to what it would be if it was newer equipment that's only no more than 12 months old.
No surprise there.
Well, actually it is. That's the first I heard. I haven't been in a Best Buy in a long time, so I didn't know about this one quirk. But I would say the way it sounds, they made a decision probably during the pandemic because sales were down on the equipment. They're not getting the newer stuff, just taking whatever they happen to have in the warehouses and leaving it out on displays, and hope that some people are dumb enough to buy it. Now, that doesn't mean what's out there would not necessarily run Windows 11. Most of it will. This person was also looking for a Chromebook, and the Chromebooks were very old, to the point where they may, instead of having 10 years of OS coverage, it used to be 5, then 7. It's been 10 for several years now. Only had 5 years worth of coverage updates left to the Chromebook. And that's what tipped off how much stuff they had there on display was old, out-of-date equipment versus something that's at least Gen 13 on Intel chips, or 14, or Ryzen's in the probably in the 5,000 or older versus 6,000, 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 series. And that
Of course, one of the best things about Best Buy is you can look at computers, you don't know what's in there, in each of them, but it doesn't matter much today because laptops all look alike on the outside.
Yeah, in a manner of speaking, yes. They're kind of like Model Ts until you get inside of them, so to speak. And I'm not talking physically inside. I'm talking about actually using them for whatever it is you're going to use them for. And that can make a big difference. But that's also the worst time to find out, hey, I didn't get a proper system for what I want to do.
Well, I certainly wouldn't suggest anybody to buy one on H.
At Best Buy.
And the TV, yeah, because they're selling 4 megabyte machines.
Huh? The only 4 megabyte machines a gigabyte machine is Chromebooks. Now those do
No, they sell S's, Windows S, which you can't
Windows
upgrade.
S, yes, because it was originally designed for a student replacement of Chromebooks, and that is a sore spot. I have had one given to me, and I converted it over to Windows regular, and I added memory to it. But some of those might have soldered in memory, meaning you cannot expand them. Just like in a Chromebook, many of them have soldered in memory. You can't change that.
Well, computers are sort of consumables now.
That's
You
correct.
don't, you don't fix them, you just throw them away and get a new one.
That's correct. They are consumables now. So you got to be on your toes, know what you're getting before you buy it. And it's just as bad with appliances and cars, because they're all computerized now, and you got to know the characteristics. Somebody at yesterday's meeting that I attended, that person found out they bought a brand new Tesla, and they somehow managed to get it over to a friend's house, and the friend thought it was too cold and wanted to adjust the air conditioning, and both just realized there's no knobs or buttons like you used to have. All the new ones have no controls like that. Many of them go through the display panel and or voice activation. And you have to get used to it. But the other thing too is neither person knew and understood. You have to take at least a piece of documentation they give you of a link to go to the manufacturer's website to download the owner's manual, and you read it, or you have the computer you downloaded it on read the document to you to know how to use your car. You just paid $40,000-$50,000 for a car, and you don't know squat about it.
Well, they have to tell you enough as to how to drive it out of the showroom. So,
Well, the other thing is, even in appliances, refrigerators, washing machines, dryers, possibly stoves to some extent, et cetera, they're all getting so computerized that if you haven't bought a new appliance, say within the last 5 years, you're going to have one big shock when you got to replace your existing utilities with a new one.
well, and when I came into my new apartment, there were no manuals for any of the appliances, and I had to force them to give me a manual or be able to go to the internet and download the manual.
Right. Well, it's better to go to the internet and download it if you got the capability. And most phones that people have may be powerful enough to deal with that situation, unless they got a very, very old phone.
Well, well, if you go to HP or you go to Lenovo or Dell even, you can see what models they have available. But for the most part, sometimes you can customize it and get one made for you, which has your preferences. You could also, sometimes you can look, if you want something cheaper or older, there are sites like even Walmart where you can search for their, I guess it's not really used equipment, but they have older stuff that you can buy off their sites if you can find the link to get there. And so all those things are certainly things that people can do to move up to Windows 11 if they need it.
Bob?
We're talking about Windows 10 today, aren't we?
Yes.
Well, Windows 10, and also I just wanted to mention that as well as their regular sites, almost all of the retail sites have what they call marketplaces, which have older stuff and stuff that may come from more questionable sources.
Well, and that's something that to some degree is needed for one simple reason. The stuff exists and they want to move it and get rid of it as quickly as they can to monetize it. Because inventory that isn't sold gets taxed by just about every state. So that's what brings up January sales specials. Trying to get rid of whatever stock you got as a business as soon as possible before the end of the month. Otherwise, anything you got left over, you got to pay a tax for, and you got to make that factored into the future's sale price. Otherwise, the business is going to eat that tax increase.
What you mean by a tax is that you have an inventory value at the end of the year, which, adds to your profit, so to speak,
Yes, but I mean,
because you're carrying inventory.
it's still a tax that I guarantee you gets passed on one way or another to future customers.
All taxes get passed on to customers.
That's right.
Taxes and tariffs.
There's no way around
And
it.
tariffs, which is a tax.
I mean, even with tariffs right now, businesses for quite a while were trying to get in as much imports before the tariffs took effect. They did that pretty well, and they've been trying to absorb tariff amounts, at least in part, as much as they could since then. And it doesn't seem to have an end, so sooner or later, it's coming out of everybody's pocket that's buying anything, including the air they're breathing. So bottom line is a tax is a tax, and it's the end buyer that always pays all the taxes all the way through the process. If you were to be in Europe, you have the VAT tax. Every step of the process of mining materials and every step of making every component of everything gets a value added tax. It's not that much by itself, but by the time you are the end buyer of the product, it's still a pretty good tax. It's much like our flat sales tax in many, many states. So it's one of those things. Anybody else got anything to bring up at the meeting? Or questions, comments, etc.? Hearing nothing, I'll turn it over to Ron to start the first version of his last presentation on Windows 10 migration.
Well, howdy. So we're finally there. We're at the fifth session, 505. And we're going to, I'm just wanting to let you all see what a migration looks like. A migration is when you're taking stuff from your old PC. Your old PC isn't going to be able to run Windows 11. You've decided that you want Windows 11, so you get a replacement PC. It might be a brand new one. It might be a refurbished one. Whatever it is, it runs Windows 11, and we're going to talk about running Windows 11 full blown, not a hack or anything like that. And so we're going to talk about how do we get all your files off the old computer, including all your programs, all your profiles, all your users, all your configuration settings that you had on Windows 10, and pull it over to the new Windows 11 PC. And there's a lot of ways of doing it. I'm going to talk about a product called PC Mover. You can go and look. There are other products out there that have emulated PC Mover. PC Mover is actually the only vendor that Microsoft recommends for doing this. They have been around, God knows how long, 30 years that I know of. They are part of LapLink, which used to connect two computers one-to-one over the parallel port of your computer, because it was, you could do 8-bit parallel connection for speed. It wasn't a serial connection. Yeah, boy, that's a long time ago. The nice thing about this process of doing a migration is that it does not destroy your current PC. It still operates. It's still there running Windows 10. If things don't actually all migrate over, you can find out, well, gee, what didn't migrate over? What am I missing here? And you can still get it off the old PC. The important thing that I'm going to be talking about, and the reason I'm recommending PC Mover, is that it will also move the applications which are on your old computer to the new computer. Many of them, not all of them. Some of them may have been way too old to they were lucky to run on Windows 10 and may not run on Windows 11. The PC Mover folks kind of know what applications are out there and how they will work, and they can check the registry entries, and they can check the INI files and all things. There's another product that Microsoft puts out called USMT, User State Migration Tool, which does a lot of what PC Mover does, except it does not move applications. So if you have installed on your computer GIMP for doing image processing, it's not going to move the GIMP and all your configuration settings over to the new computer. It's just going to move over your files, your profiles, the configurations which are in your profiles, but it's not going to move the applications and that need those configurations. So if you pre-install the applications on the new computer, on the new to you computer, you can use USMT from Microsoft to gather the information from the old computer and apply the configuration settings to the new computer, and you're often off to the races. So you still have the old PC, which is kind of nice. The other nice thing is, hey, if it didn't work, you can still remigrate. Maybe when you do the migration, it didn't take everything you wanted, and you can migrate again. You can unmigrate with this. You can say, oh, gee, I did this whole installation and it didn't quite work right. You can undo it and it goes right back. Your Windows 11 computer goes right back. This is a non-destructive process on the old computer. So the old computer never gets changed. And so that's kind of a good thing if you have to redo things over and over again. So what do we need to do on both systems before you get started? Make sure you know the administrator username and password. I've said this in all my other sessions. That's probably the key one that you're going to want to know is an administrator account, username, and password. It doesn't have to be the word administrator. It might be something else that you have. But as long as you know that it's an administrator account level, local administrator account level, username and password. Again, this is not using the Microsoft account. You may want to back up your profiles, especially on the Windows 11 machine, because when you had the Windows 11 machine, it probably has a default administrator account or something like that. So you may want to back it up just in case. On the Windows 10 machine, as well as the Windows 11 machine, you're going to want to get whatever updates to the operating system, any apps that you have there, and any device drivers. Old Windows 10 device drivers may not work on a Windows 11 environment. They should, but most vendors may have played with their drivers, so they have one set of drivers that work for both Windows 10 and Windows 11. Make sure you turn your antivirus off on both computers, especially the Windows 11 computer for this process. If your new computer has OneDrive Sync operating, you probably want to turn it off as well. You don't want to be trying to sync at the same time all these files are flying across from the old computer to the new computer. You can turn it on later and make sure everything's working. Definitely on both computers, you're going to want to turn off any power saving utility or settings that you have in the system in the settings mode of OS on Windows 11 and Windows 10. And at that point, you're ready to go. And what we go with is we take one of these. It's a USB drive. This one happens to be a terabyte from Western Digital. As long as, I would say anything above 250 megabyte is probably gigabyte. I'm sorry, 250 gigabyte is going to be satisfactory because we're not copying the entire disk. We're not doing disk duplication or anything like that. We're just taking your data primarily off of your C drive, but you can take it off. If you have multiple drives on your device, you can do the entire thing. And we'll show how that works today because the computer that we're taking this from, it has two drives, two partitions. It has a C partition and a D partition. The other thing you want to do is get PC Mover. And PC Mover is not free. It does cost. I think Amazon has it right now. And what you want is PC Mover Professional. Unless you're doing a whole bunch, then they have small business versions. They all use the same methodology. You don't want to get the personal version of PC Mover unless you have a very basic system with only one user on it. If you have more than one user, an administrator, maybe some personal accounts, you're going to want to get PC Mover Professional. The list price, the price you get charged if you go directly to PC Mover or you can't find it at a discount is $60, which is still cheap considering how well this works and how much time it saves you. But you can get it almost, I've seen it for as low as $30, a half price. Look for coupons, get it already, and buy it in advance. That way you have the license key. They deliver, especially if you can buy it online, the license key comes to you right away within 15 minutes. You have the license key and you're ready to go. You might want to get a hold of all your application license keys just in case. So if you have applications which you paid licenses for, you may want to track them down. Now, I have rarely had problems with any applications that are copied over from the old system to the new system, just in case. It's like doing a backup. If you can get your license keys, that's wonderful. And then just before we do this, it's two steps. We're going to get all the files that we need from the old computer and put them onto this USB drive. And the next thing we're going to do is take that USB drive, connect it to the new computer, the Windows 11 computer, and take everything off of that drive and install it onto the new drive. So before anything that we're doing here on the old computer, reboot, have no other programs running. If some of your programs auto start on the new computer, you're going to want to close them or exit them after the computer boots up and you're logged in. And log in as an administrator account. Again, it's my recommendation. You don't have to, but you might need it for something. I don't know your computer, and it's just a safety precaution. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to show you this actually running. I'm going to change cameras here so we can look at this other camera. So this other computer. Okay. Oh, did I not do that right? Cam link. Okay. Oh, there we go. So we should see my screen now. This is a video that I ran, so we can run through it real quick. The actual creation from this old computer to the new computer took about 40 minutes. And when you see what the specs are of this computer, it's not too shabby. Let me get this started here. Okay, here we go. Oh, I'm going way too fast. All right, let's go back. I had not reset my speed here. Let's try this. No, it's still way too fast. Let's go to the equal sign. There we go. Now I'm going. All right, so here we go. Yes. All right, so we're now moving at a slow speed. I'm gonna just pick it up just a tad here. Go twice the speed. All right, I want to look at the settings here just so you can see what kind of a system we're coming from. It's a 4 GB memory. It's got only 120 GB hard drive. It's running Windows 10 Pro 22H2. And I've downloaded from, that's a mistake. I downloaded from the PC Mover folks. I've downloaded the installer. We're going to run the installer here so you can see how quick that runs. Oh, I had it installed already. We're going to restart it. Here we go. So pretend I installed it. You'll see how fast it installs when we install it on the new computer. All right, so here we go. We're running it, and the first thing it's going to do, it's going to take a look, initialize, and it's going to ask, is this the old PC or the new PC? Well, this is the old PC, and I'm going to do a file-based transfer. In other words, it's going to take all the files it needs, and it's going to put them on my USB drive that I have connected here. And there we go. So I'm just going to give it a simple name. Here it happens to be my a drive labeled passport. And now it's going to scan the system. This takes a little bit here, so I'm going to speed this up. All right. So it did pop up saying, hey, it detected that there was a trial version of Microsoft Office on the system, and it's not going to copy the trial version, just letting me know. Here it's scanning. We're already up to 6 minutes into operating this. And once it's done scanning, it's gonna show me what it saw that it can take and what it's going to transfer. So you can just use the standard. I'm actually gonna let's equal this, slow this down a little bit here. So I'm gonna back up just a moment here. There we go. All right. So this shows me all the applications that it found. Documents, advanced settings. We're going to go through this. These are the applications that were on the old system that it knows. It's verified that it can take over. There are a number that are unverified that it thinks it can take over, so they're all checked off. Here, there were some conflicting ones, things which you wouldn't normally want to get over because they're already in the other system, or it's old, like Lenovo, and I'm going to a non-Lenovo system. So a lot of the drivers and things like that probably don't come across. I'm going to do Malwarebytes because I want that to come over. I think I may have done OneDrive, and there might be a couple other things. But you see, a lot of these are just driver things which are installed. I also did want to take over some of the redistributables, the C++, so I wouldn't have to reload those. I didn't need all of them. this system originally ran Windows 8.1, so it's been around a while, and there's a lot of weird software on there that doesn't do it. Unlisted, these are the programs which are going to be copied over. Some we're not going to copy over, some we are. PowerShell, the latest versions of PowerShell, running the Microsoft Edge configurations. These are all set here. When it's done, we're just going to click on done. And from here, we're going to go to the next step, which is actually making the transfer file. Now, I want you to realize, I'm going to show you some other things. So here we can see I have both the C drive and the D drive are going to be copied over. There's some other things in this list here which I thought I might want to do. So things like, let's see here. There we go. Disable my auto start programs so they don't auto start in Windows 11 when I first started up. And then there's some, you may or may, if you still have Outlook Express, more power to you. You can import some of those settings if you need to. I don't know if I looked at anything else here to show you, so I'll just kind of wait. Let's see, done. Okay, and this is just showing that in those particular drives, I can select subfolders and have them copied or not copied. So you can actually, if there's things that you don't care about, you can ensure that they're not copied over. Again, you can get fairly granular when you do this. If you know your system well, you don't have to copy quite as much over. Let me speed this up just a tad here. Okay. So I'm just showing you the videos, the music, the document files are all carried over. You'll notice that which users I had. Let's see here, user accounts. Okay, so I'm here now. It's going to calculate how much to put into the transfer file. This transfer file on this system is going to be about 30 gigs total. All right, so it's ready to create, and now it's just going to go run it, and so I'm going to run much faster. Let's see if I can go faster yet. There we go, 32 times. All right. It won't go this fast unless you also have a time machine that you can make speed go faster in real life. When it gets to the end, it'll say, hey, done. Do you want some reports? It'll tell you what it backed up, what it's in the transfer file, and you're set to go at that point. So this is now in my, okay, and I'm going to, okay, so let's stop this. Oops. And now I'm actually in the next video already. And we're going to go equal sign. All right. So here is, I've connected up to my new system. Here you can see I'm logging into my new system here. This is a Windows 11 system. I'm logging into an administrator account here. And we'll see what the desktop looks like in a moment. So the transfer file is on this USB drive. Speed is not, this was not an extremely fast upgrade. It's not a brand new computer. It's just new to me. So here you can see we have a few things on the desktop. Not a whole lot here. on this Windows 11 computer. There is a profile, and there were some files that were already put on here and some applications which were installed. But as you can see, there's not a whole lot on here. I'm going to download the My PC. I'm sorry, not My PC. I'm going to download the PC Mover application and install it. Actually, what I did is I put the PC Mover application also on the USB drive so that I didn't have to download it again on the new computer. It's the same application. Here we go. It's going to install. Now you can see how fast it actually installs. Yes, we definitely do want to make changes to the system. Okay. And then you can see it's just a simple file. Right. Go a little bit faster here. Very good. Welcome. And the first thing it's going to do, when it asks me, is this the new computer? Because the executable doesn't know which computer it's installed on. When it sees that it's the new computer, it's going to ask me for the password, username and password, and the license key. So here we are. Again, this is a transfer type, which is a file-based transfer. I told it's my new computer. I'm telling it where my file location is, and it's going to scan the system real quick here. At some point, if I haven't already done it, I'm not quite sure. There it is. It's asking me for the information which I got from the PC Mover company when I bought it with the serial number. If you see the serial number here, it's not going to work. I'm using a different serial number. This happens to be for a 5-user license, and this is only a 1-user license installation here. And let me see if I can get past this. Okay. There we go. Yeah, so that number is actually wrong. There we go. So now it's scanning and it's going and it's showing what it's going to do. And it's now actually running. It's going to tell me about how much time it's going to take. It goes up. This counted up here. We were at 50 minutes. It only took me 17 minutes to actually do this transfer from the USB drive to the installation on the Windows 11 computer. So not very long. All my configuration issues, all that stuff comes across. Here it's configuring my Microsoft Office 2016. There we go. Complete. All right. And that's it. And I opened it up. This is the that's the report. I rebooted the computer, and that's the end of it. I rebooted the computer after I was done. There's a couple of things I want to talk about here. Here is the computer now. This is the computer that got updated. As you can see, there's a lot more icons on the desktop because it moved the files over, and it kept the files I already had. These two over here, it kept those. I am running Windows 11 Pro 24 H2. The other thing that I wanted you to be aware of is I had 2 user profiles on the old computer. They were both administrator profiles, but I had 2. When I did the setup for this demonstration, I just allowed those administrator profiles to, or at least the primary profile, to merge with the administrator profile on this computer. So even though the other profile is called RF-admin and the new one is called administrator, it merged the RF-admin into administrator. So all the settings there, that's why my desktop looks the same, is because it took all that information from the old computer and merged it. And then there's a second account, administrator account, which is on this system as well. You can undo the transfer. Just run PC Mover again, and it will say, do you want to undo what you did? As you can see, I have PC Mover here on the desktop that I could do that. This happens to be the installer up here, and this is the actual, I'm sorry, this is the actual app, and this is the installer over here. Is there anything else on here? Oh, so a couple gotchas. Some applications detect if they're on new hardware. And if they do, they ask you to re-authenticate yourself. So you might have that with some of your applications that you come over. Again, that's one of the reasons why I said you may want to have your application license keys there. Or you might be making a quick phone call to the vendor to say, hey, I just migrated everything over to my Windows 11. The old Windows 10 computer is no more. I need to activate my application on the new computer. So that's one thing that you may want to be aware of. That's nothing that any migration app can account for. The other thing is to watch out for is what to do with your library folders. So let's say you made your library folders all point to a different drive because your C drive is small and your secondary drive was large. You have the option during the configuration of the setup here that you can actually say, well, if it's these folders, they go here, and if it's these folders, they go there. You don't have to do it when you create this from your old system. You do it before you say copy everything off the USB drive and install it. So you do have some more configuration options available to you. And that is it. Any questions? Let me
offhand, I want to add to it. On your old system, you have BellyArc. I would install that. I would run it and print out the report. And the reason I would do that is usually it will list all the software applications you have on the old system as a guideline for what you want to pre-install on the new system before the migration. And at the same time too, you might also find on there all of your licensed software keys. But check it out first. Make sure that you have all the keys listed. Then that way it'll make, if you have to take and re-register or authenticate your software on the new system, you got the keys to do it. You don't have to go through other hoops to try and get that accomplished.
Yeah.
Now, in another factor, those who are on Windows 10 going to 11, which is primarily what we're talking about here anyhow, Microsoft, in a fairly recent update, I think it was August, but it could have been the September one, they took and modified their backup utility. So if you go to the Microsoft built-in backup program, which they recommend you do not use, going back to 2019, and recommend you use a third-party program. It'll bring up a window. split it in half. The left side has the backup tool. The right side has the Microsoft migration tool, and it doesn't cost you a dime extra. So that's how you get to the new migration tool within 10 and 11 so that the two can talk to each other.
Yeah, and the migration tool is available. Just do a Google search for Microsoft USMT, and it will the top, whether it's Bing or Google or Dogpile, whatever your favorite search engine is, it'll be the very top thing, including a full set of instructions on how to use it.
Yep, the instructions you'll need, but I think you likely, unless you have not been properly updating your old system, already have the migration tool on your system is what I'm trying to provide the information on.
Oh, because it's a part of the new the update to the backup
Right.
utility. Got it. Okay.
Right. They put that in, and as long as you've been properly updating, that's what you should find. If you don't find that new version of the backup program with the migration tool, then you have to do what Ron said. Go do a Google search or whatever you use as your search engine to get a copy of the migration tool from Microsoft. If that's what you want to use, download it along with the instructions, and you have to do this on both systems.
Yeah. So just like we had to do with the PC Mover, we had to install it on both systems.
Correct.
because they actually work kind of the same way.
Yes.
Where you're creating a subset of files that you're trying to transfer over, and then when you're at the other place, you're trying to open that subset of files and reinstall them on the new system. So
yeah, now unless they've changed it, PC Mover will move the applications to the new system from the old one. But
yeah,
the Microsoft does not move any applications.
correct.
And therefore, you do want to pre-install them before you do the migration. Each one has its own default settings, and when you do the migration, it'll copy the old settings setup to the new machine's software so that it looks and feels just like it did on 10.
Yeah.
The only bad part there is far too many people do not do customization of their application programs. They use them just the way they got installed, in which case you don't have to worry about the migration changing anything. It'll be the same thing that you had on 10.
Yeah, the biggest issue I had with USMT is I do have older software on my system, going way back. I have Lotus Approach, which is their database. I have a full set of applications which are based on it. I never converted it to Microsoft Access or Borland's products or anything like that. So I kind of need it to work. And hell, if I know where I have those disks.
Well, the benefit of doing the migration is that nothing happened to your old system. It's still there. It still works.
Yeah.
Everything
It's wonderful.
works. So if you do run into a situation like that, then you can take alternative measures to try and get that programs, settings, etc., from the old machine to the new machine until everything works satisfactorily. Then you have to figure out what you're going to do with the old machine.
Boat anchor.
Possibly. Or repurpose for some other specific use and purpose other than what you have been using it for.
We wanted to keep people up to date and remind them about AI being part of things. So on my phone, I went to Copilot, and I asked it to tell a joke about the Chicago Computer Society.
No.
So here's what we got back.
Why did the Chicago Computer Society cross the road? To debug the other side's Wi-Fi.
Why did the Chicago Computer
Oh
Society
my
cross
gosh.
the road to debug the other side's Wi-Fi? Pretty lame, but it.
But true. But true.
So that's our Wi-Fi joke.
Very good.
AI joke for this meeting.
And you said AI doesn't have a sense of humor.
It sure doesn't.
Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
Let me clarify the usage of the PC mover.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I can find it online, then we're talking about a download.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. A single download.
Well, that's what I want to clarify. So it's a single download to the old computer. And with that, you get a key.
Well, you don't need a key for the old computer. You need a key on the new computer where it's the same piece of software that I downloaded for the old computer. The same software gets installed on the new computer, and it's going to require a key to actually do the work that you wanted it to do.
But so I'm downloading it to the new computer as well?
Or you copy what
I'm
you've
downloading
done.
it to both. That's my
Or
question.
You could copy it to a flash drive from the old system, go over to the new system, and execute the same program on the new computer, and only download once.
Yeah. So when I downloaded it on the old computer, and I made my image, my transfer file. Okay, when I made my transfer file,
You had the key at that point.
Yeah, well, I don't need a key yet because of the old computer, but I just copied the installer file to my USB drive. So when I connected it to my new computer, I could install it right from the site. I didn't have to download it twice, just download it once and reuse it as often as I want. But when I start it and I say on the new computer, saying, is this the old, it'll ask me, is this the old computer or is this the new computer? When PC Mover starts and I say, it's the new computer, it's going to say, well, then tell me your license key. And that's the point where you put it in.
So every time you do a download, you're buying the key at that point.
You don't even need to buy the download. You just need to have the license key in advance of doing the reinstallation of everything on the new computer. So you can download PC Mover Pro right now and not have to pay for anything.
To both machines if I wanted to.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't be able to actually finish the transfer to the new machine until you had that license key.
So when do I get the key?
When
I
you
can
buy
download
it.
it both,
Whenever
but then it's
you
a
want-
separate process to buy it.
whenever
Yeah,
you
you buy-
want to pay for it.
Yeah. When you pay for it, you get the license key.
That's it.
So whether you buy it from Amazon or you buy it directly from PC Mover Laplink or some other third party, at that point, once you pay for it, they're supposed to send you the license key immediately. And when I bought through PC Mover and applied their handy dandy coupon code, I've gotten it within 5 minutes in my email.
And then I just put that license key into both computers to initiate.
No, just the last one.
Only the new machine you're transferring all
Yeah.
this stuff to requires the license, because it says, is this the new machine you're transferring to or the old machine? And as soon as you say it's the new machine, you cannot go any further until you put that paid for
Yeah.
license key in the proper box.
Yeah. Yeah, the old machine never needs the license key. The old machine will never need it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I didn't understand that when you first went through the process. I thought
I
you
know.
were pulling a license key with the old one. And okay.
Yeah. So what I usually recommend is buy it in advance so that you're not waiting around trying to find the credit card you're going to use to pay for it. What on the you're going back and forth and doing things. Just have it ready. Bingo. When time comes, it's a 12-digit or a 15-digit license key. Type it in. You're rocking and rolling.
And if you get the key in your email on the new machine, you can do a copy paste and paste it in.
You could, yeah.
That way you make no typo errors.
I never make typo errors.
Yeah.
A million other kinds of errors I make, but never a typo error.
Mm.
If it's a long string of alphanumerics, I would definitely copy paste.
Yeah, ditto. And you can. I mean, it's allowed. I mean, it comes to you as an email. It's a string text, and it allows you to paste in that string text in the application. Some applications are crazy about passwords and keys and stuff like that. This is pretty straightforward.
All they really care about is that it's paid.
Right. And that
Yeah.
you're not abusing the license agreement. So if you only
Right.
had it for one machine transfer, that it won't let you use that key again on any other transfer. If on the other hand you get the package that allows for 5 machines, now you got 5 different license keys. You every time you use one of those license keys, that means one less time you can use that key.
The way PC Mover works is if you get the 5-pack for 5 computers, it's still one license key.
Okay.
But it's got a countdown, use it once, use it twice, use it 3 times. Okay, so.
And that's per PC, not per transfer.
Right, it's per PC. So I can do this over and over and over again between the same old computer
And
Now,
5 separate
to
computers.
the same new computer.
Just
So
in
it doesn't
case
even know what the old computer is. So
Just in case you mess up.
I never mess up either.
Well, I have about a million ways to mess up anything.
And so do I. They're pretty classic. Anything else? Well, I am in the public library in the land of 10,000 lakes. And they're getting ready to close up shop. So I do need to clean up and exit. It's been a kick. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ron.
Good having you.
All right. Anybody got a little bit of delay? So if any of you guys want to discuss something amongst yourselves, go ahead.
Aldo, you were talking about problems with Microsoft Office. Maybe we could go into that a little deeper.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened, but usually I use Excel 2021. And when I would start it up, it would show on the taskbar. I would hover over the taskbar, little icon would show the file. When I try to blow it up on the screen, it doesn't do it. Right click in a few things. It says, maximize, try that, no luck. And a few other things. A little research, it says if it works on safe mode, which it does, it says disable add-ins. So I just looked up, say, okay, which add-ins are on it? From the research I did on says you have no add-ons, so that's not it. So I got to try some other things.
Can you open a blank file? A new file?
Safe mode, yes, but in normal, nothing happens. Just see it on taskbar, and that's it. That's the first time it ever happened. So right now, I still got to do a bit of research. They suggested
So,
other things too, like system. While I did that, no luck. Restored from previous version, still did not work with the new version.
is there a corrupt file tool somewhere that can help you open it up?
Um, the one that comes with Microsoft or with Windows, I ran that. Everything's fine, so there's nothing's corrupt. System files are good. Someone suggested I have it at 125 because of vision problem. Someone said go back to 100 and see if that works. So that's something I may try. I will try later. And a couple of other things. So, and I'm doing financial accounting. Wrap up what I call bimester. I got most of it all done. And then all of a sudden, can't do it anymore. So I went to LibreOffice, did the final stuff. Said, okay, let me try LibreOffice from now on. So I got to learn that one. So that's my option. At least I have an option which I'm happy.
So it depends on the features you used in the spreadsheet.
Not really. I mean, there's really nothing that fancy. I've been using it for a whole bunch of times. Okay. The other ones work. I have Publisher Backup that's working and the Word that's working. So the other ones are fine. Just
Is there
Excel.
something that could be blocking it, a firewall or other, I guess, other programs that might be interfering?
Not that I'm aware of. You know, I know a bit of computers, but not that much. So that's why, I really enjoy the CCS.
Sometimes security can block certain types of files. Maybe that could be an issue.
Okay, the thing that gets me is it's been working fine until now. The only thing I could possibly think of is I was doing something and I needed to shut down the computer, and I thought I closed all the programs, but in the shutting down, I think it was still open. Excel was still open when I powered down the computer. That's the only thing I can really think that caused it, because from then on, it did not work. Prior to that, it was fine. And like I said, okay, then let me do a restore. So I went to a restore previous to that, and the same results now. Frustrating, but not.
Of course. Is there? Have you checked your disk drive to see if you're out of space?
No, I got tons of space.
Okay.
Got about 60% used, so.
No, that's fine. Sometimes people don't realize it builds up, so it can't work anymore.
So.
Anybody else have any suggestions?
As long as CheckDisk says there isn't any corruption, it remains kind of a mystery.
Yeah.
There might be something in the program which is no longer supported by some of your system files. Microsoft does change system files from time to time.
Trying again now.
Well, offhand, we got a problem. Linux is in a bit of a transition period, and a lot of apps that work on Windows and Linux don't play nice in the Linux versions at time. Now, we had this problem a month ago, and something has changed again, and none of the options on Linux are allowing me to share anything. It says right now I'm sharing. Well, it's not sharing what I want you to see. It's sharing whatever it wants you to see. I'll see if I can get what I want to show. but I'm a little skeptical of it. Display, and we're going to enlarge that. Will you get out of my way? All right. Well, at least I got that part back. This is what I had to add to this month's meeting notes. A disclaimer and some advice built in together here for people, because I have a lot of different pieces of articles or videos that talk about debloating 11 and optimizing 11. And this gives you information as to how to approach this if you're interested. If you're not interested, ignore those articles. But bottom line, there seems to be a big pickup on how to debloat even 10 and 11 of the stuff that Microsoft is providing that people individually are not wanting on their computer because it's taking up space. It may also be running services and background applications they have no interest in or need for. So they're trying to slim down their Windows 10 and 11 operating systems. This is the way to approach the problem to prevent a disaster on your part. You have to back up thoroughly your entire drive of your machines. You have to then create a customized version with a iOS you have to download. Best to do this on a separate drive with no other drives inside the computer system by either disconnecting them or taking your existing drives out. And put in the test drive and do all your experimenting over and over again until you feel comfortable, you know what you're doing. And then if you have a secondary system to your primary system, do that first, wait about a week, then do your primary system, as long as you're not finding problems. If you don't do it the right way and things go bad, you did it, nobody else did. And nobody put a gun to your head to make you do it. So I'm putting this in here and I'm trying to clarify what's going on. Now, I have a lot of Windows 10 and the support type things. These first two are kind of important. If you have not yet seen ESU, some people may not see the ESU prompt in Windows Update until the 13th of October. Other people have already seen it or used one of these solutions that come in these videos. Here's one, how to find your Microsoft account for that machine. And by doing so, you can find out whether you have any reward points accumulated. And it doesn't take a lot to accumulate a lot of points. And as long as you got 1,000 points, you can use that to pay for the ESU. The second way is only doing a backup to OneDrive of just your system settings, not any of your libraries and documents. Or you can pay out $30 cash, but it also depends on how many Windows 10 machines you want to put the ESU on. $30 a piece adds up very fast. 3 machines, it's $120 in cash, or 3,000 points that you may already have accumulated. Now, that's an option. And a lot of people don't know how to get to their Microsoft account information. This is a full guide. Cover your tracks is something I just came across, I think last week. And this is a way of checking the porosity of the privacy of your individual browsers. If you have one or more browsers on your machine, you test each one with this site, and it will tell you how badly you're leaking personal information to the world on the internet. Copilot mode is now available on Edge. This is to use Copilot to do all your searching in place of Bing, Google, DuckDuckGo, and several other search engines out there. Now, 25H2, new feature. Let's see if I can get this up and running. I hope it's launching. Come on, come on. Oh, what's a control click? Some of these do some unusual things. This one wants me to hold down the control key to launch the application. And it's a video, isn't available anymore. Woo, ain't that something? It's been taken down. I don't know the reason. Sorry about that, folks, but there are a lot of other videos out there that you can get for Windows 11 25H2 if you have a Windows 11 machine, and it'll tell you about a lot of the new features that are going in. If you have an 11 machine, you're on 24H2 and you keep the updates up and going good, you would be able to take and have most of the software already installed on your computer that's 25H2. And when you run the actual upgrade, it'll go through very quickly and it will just activate what you already have installed on your system, and it goes by very fast. If you're one of these people that don't update often or at all, you're going to be in for a big upgrade to 25H2, because 24H2 replaced all old versions of Windows on your equipment and gave you a whole bunch of the software in your monthly updates, and then 25H2 just has to activate primarily all the software you already have sitting out there that you didn't know was 25H2. Only a little bit of additional software may end up getting installed. Now, for some of you, you might be interested in this, especially if you got an old, not too smart television set, or you have a smart television set that's real old and the manufacturer has a few, if any, of the applications still installed on your TV. You can make a simple portable flash drive with Google TV and run that and have the equivalent of a smart Android TV with lots of apps. You may, however, want to get from something like Amazon a Bluetooth or Wi-Fi type of tiny little keyboard, so that it's easier to type in passwords, URLs for web searches, etc. with that keyboard instead of using your remote. That doesn't work well. Old PCs are useless. Well, let's see what that one looks like. Not available. Now, I would advise you to check them out on your own, because these were available just days ago. And why suddenly a bunch of them aren't available is mystifying to me. Now they want you to try a search. Well, I might be able to do that. I got to get my list back up. Whoops. Didn't want that. There it is. Okay. Let's take these two here. Copy that. And I gotta minimize that. Put it in the search. The heck? Let's try that again. Boy, things don't want to work well tonight. I'll tell you that. There we go. Finally. All right. Now see, these are very popular. This is talking about debloating off the top. And I put in something different as the topic, and it's not even showing up here. Here we go. This is something probably similar. This is doing a comparison of 25H2 versus 24H2. Hang on a minute here. I have a feeling I probably didn't set a setting. So I want to, sorry about that.
Over Windows 11 24H2. And while Microsoft fans hope for a speed boost, the reality is quite underwhelming. Because Fornix has already tested Windows 11 25H2 against Canonical's upcoming Ubuntu 25.10, Ubuntu 2.4.0.3 LTS, and Windows 11 24H2 in a head-to-head benchmarking battle to see if the new version delivers any improvements. And sadly, the results show otherwise, as testing revealed that 25H2 was unable to outperform 24H2, even technically losing to its predecessor in many tests, with the benchmarks carried out on a Ryzen 9 9950X paired with 32 gigabytes of DDR5 memory and covering a wide variety of applications, including
Okay, I'm gonna stop it there because they get into too much detail that most people are not concerned about. And let's go back to the list, and we'll see if we can find, whoops. Let's see if I can get rid of that and get my list back up. And we're going to see if this one is available or what the heck's going on, because most of these last quite some time. This is crazy. This is the first time I've come across this problem. And again, it's showing debloat, not what I'm asking for. So apparently, recently, a lot of programs may have been removed from Yahoo. YouTube, excuse me. YouTube may have expired some. They've also been pressing that people come into compliance with their regulations, and when they don't, some of them get knocked off, and that's not a joke. Let's see what we come up with next here. Well, let's go to this one here. Now this one's going to play. Hallelujah.
Like, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, notifications, and see you in the next video. Bye. Bye.
Whoops. Come on, play.
Today I bring you the new version of Google TV 13, improved to date, which includes new improvements such as sound, HDMI input, applications that you can now run, which will no longer get stuck on the logo on some computers, video games. You can have streaming programs, external APK, and other things that you can do, such as, for example, take your cell phone and use it as a TV remote control. So welcome to the Edwishel YT channel, and this is Google 13 updated. Let's get started. Before starting this video, I want to give credit and thanks to my friend Tulio Dominguez and Bruno, who are the ones who have made it possible for these versions of Google TV and Android TV to reach you. They are the ones who have taken control, and today we see new updates and news from both Google TV and Android TV. If you like, in the description of the video I leave the link directly to their YouTube channel. Okay, friends, now we're going to get into the tutorial, but before that I'm going to give you some requirements so that you can say, that didn't work for me, this doesn't work. Number 1, if you have one of these disks, such as a mechanical disk, you'll be able to install it there, but it'll be a little slow. If you have a solid disk like this one, it'll work perfectly. And if you have an external disk like this one or another one, it'll also work. And a USB stick too. We'll be able to do it on any of these, and it'll be in portable mode. We're not going to do it in Windows mode, because I've heard some people say, "Adu, my Windows is damaged, it won't boot, it doesn't work." So, to avoid the risk of damaging Windows, we're going to do it via tablet. And now these disks that we have here, in order to use them as external disks, you're going to need a converter like this one, which is SATA to USB, as you can see here. You can get this from Temu, Mercado Libre, AliExpress, and other platforms at a reasonable price. So there are already some of these that come ready with USB 3.0 so that the function is much faster. This is very easy to use. You simply connect it directly to your hard drive and it will be ready to work. And now the next step, what you are going to do is the following.
Okay, I'm not going to go.
You are going to go to the description of the video where I will.
I'm not going into the details here. I'll let you individually do that. And I have tried it. I did get it to work just fine. I happen to use it on a small size SSD. It gives you a little bit of speed performance, not a lot, but it's a little faster than using a regular flash thumb drive. So something to consider. Like I said, there's here two different ways of doing debloating. There's other ones in here. Then you have the risk of using 10 and how to fix them. In other words, if you continue on with 10 after October the 14th, there are a few things you need to change. They tell you what to change and how to change it, and it will improve your system's security. How to hack, hackers get into your PC with an image Trojan. This is, from what I know, something pretty new, probably because of them using AI tools. This one got removed too. Well, you're going to have a whole lot of apparently missing stuff that YouTube, for whatever reason, has removed a lot of these articles that were just there days ago. So I don't know exactly what they're doing and why some of these have been taken down, but I find it a bit of an irritation that they're doing that at this point in time. I haven't run into, occasionally I run this into this kind of an issue as I am previewing a lot of videos, and I occasionally come across one that they have already removed before I saw it for the first time. So This is something I can't control. Let's see what this one. Paul's top 11 tips. Well, at least this one's.
20 minutes.
This is Paul Surratt.
On Hands on Windows, it's a new year, so I thought I'd take a step back and look at my top tips for Windows 11.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Hands on Windows. I'm Paul Surratt, and this week I thought I would take a step back and look at my top tips for Windows 11. I think it's 11 tips, if I counted correctly, in no particular order, although I did organize them by topic, I guess, so I suppose there is an order. And if you're looking at my screen now, you'll see that this is a highly customized version of Windows 11 in the sense that I'm not using any of the defaults. This is my actual sign-in and the apps I actually use, that kind of stuff. And I would just say, from a customization standpoint, as ADHD as I can be, I try not to sweat the small things. And what I mean by that, for starters, for example, is I will customize the taskbar because that's where I primarily launch the applications that I use every day. But when I go into the start menu, I don't really customize this. So if you use the start menu more than the taskbar, you might want to do the reverse. There's certainly some customization you can do there if you want. But for me, I would say tip number one is, don't sweat the small stuff. Customize the things that you actually use. In my case, that's the taskbar. That's my primary UI. Number two is also related to customization, and this is with regards to the kind of look and feel of the OS, right? And so this all happens under personalization themes, right? And so Windows 11 supports this new type of theme. Themes are constructed of these four elements here. I have this set up as kind of a colorful display. I'm using dark mode, so it's not reflecting on my face while we're doing the video recording. But the point of this is mostly just for it to be colorful. I'm testing some app development stuff. I want to see the translucency effects and so forth. The big one for me is I turn off the sounds. I don't like the default Windows sounds, so I turn that to no sounds. And Microsoft just fixed the cursor issue I mentioned in a previous issue, so I don't have to worry about that anymore, but that was a concern for a little while. And then you can save this as a custom name, which I do. And after I get everything set up the way I want it. So you can do that however you wish. There is no way in Windows, unfortunately, to switch between light and dark mode automatically as day shifts into night and vice versa. There are third-party utilities, but I find that as much as that's convenient on a phone, I don't really use it as much, or I wouldn't use it as much on Windows, so I switch back and forth just as needed. OneDrive, obviously, is a primary component, a core component of Windows, and this is tip number 3, which is to make sure that this thing is configured ideally for your use case. So you do most of that inside here, settings. So a couple of areas here. The big one, of course, is folder backup. We've talked about this a lot. I don't personally use folder backup, so I make sure that stuff is always off. Windows fights me on that. Sometimes we go back and forth. It enables it, I disable it, etc. But you may want to use that feature. It's certainly worth trying. So I turn all that stuff off. The other big change I make in here is notifications. And the only thing I change is actually this notify me on this day. So this is the thing where you get the notification that says, hey, remember this fun day? Here are some photos from that day. I don't do that sort of thing on my PC. That's for my phone. So that's just an annoyance, and I turn that one off. But the third big thing about OneDrive is Personal Vault, right? And the first time you run this, you'll go through kind of a wizard process. It's going to check with me. My camera's over here, so I got to make sure it's me. This is the new Windows Hello sign-in experience, if you haven't seen it. And this will let me into my vault. So I strongly recommend, if you're using OneDrive, that you do use Personal Vault. And the reason is this is a secure, encrypted, protected from everybody, including Microsoft space, where you can keep private documents. So in my case, it's a lot of 2FA codes and backup codes and emergency kits and things like that. So you could put credit card numbers, copies of your ID, etc. So this is something you can access in Windows, but you can also access on the Mac and a mobile device, whatever. good to have that in place. If you're not using OneDrive, we talked about this in a previous episode, but you could disable it or even uninstall it if you want to go to that degree. But I find that even when I use something like Google Drive, which I do, by the way, I still have use for OneDrive, for example, private vault. So I keep it running, but you can also turn that off if you want. Once you have Windows up and running, this is when tip number 4, I think we're on, kicks into gear, which is you want to make sure that nothing is auto starting with your computer when it starts up or when you sign into the computer. A couple of places for this. I'm old school. I still go to the old UI. The old UI is in Task Manager. And this is where you see what Windows has tried to configure or can configure for auto run at sign in and what I have enabled or allowed and disallowed. So, for example, you can sort this by status, so enabled or disabled, and then you can go through this list of enabled apps. If you don't use Microsoft Edge, we'll talk about that in a minute. You could disable that here. If you're not using OneDrive, for example, you could disable that here. So I don't actually want personally for Phone Link to come on every time I sign into Windows, so I just turn that off. So the other UI, I should say, is inside the Settings app. If you go to Apps and Startup, it's the same basic thing. It's a little, to me, it's because it's bigger, it's a little harder to look at, but you can do the same thing. Sort by status. You'll see that same list of apps. You can turn them on or off. This is the more modern UI, but it does the same thing. All right. I think we're on step 5 or tip 5, right? Is security. So a few episodes back, I talked about signing in with a local account. It is possible to do that securely. I would say that's mostly for advanced users. Most people should sign into Windows with a Microsoft account, or if you have a corporate account or an account with your employer, or you work for the government, or you're in an educational institution, a Microsoft Work or School account. And there's a bunch of stuff that goes along with that. But one of the big things you can do is protect that account with secondary authentication, with a authenticator app or your phone or whatever. Super important. But when you sign into Windows, you will be prompted to enter a PIN. You have to do that if you're using any account that has a password. But you can also go in here. You could have done this during setup, but you can always do it later and see what the sign-in options are available and then enable them as you can. So in this particular computer, I don't actually have a fingerprint reader, but I do have facial recognition with Windows Hello ESS. So I have that enabled, and it will look at me and know it's me, sign me in securely, etc. This particular computer is a Copilot plus PC, so it has Windows Hello enhanced security as well. But from a user experience standpoint, it's actually the same. It's actually turned off here because today I'm using an external webcam for this video, but normally I have that enabled. Okay, where are we? 6 is keep your system up to date. So this system is hopefully up to date, but I'm going to look anyway. I was just doing all this before we started the show, but there's 3 ways to check for updates, 3 main ways in Windows. First, obviously, is Windows Update. You're going to get your system updates here. And then you'll have optional updates, which I think is something a lot of people don't look at. This is where you're going to see a lot of driver updates from your PC maker, especially. So it's good to look there. The schedule on this is going to be once every 2 weeks if you've got this switch enabled, because you're going to get preview updates, or once every 4 weeks, every month, because you'll get those Patch Tuesday primary updates. The second place to look for updates, obviously, is the Microsoft Store. So this is apps, but it's also system components, like this type of thing here, that aren't necessarily apps that you run, but they're required for the back end, and maybe they need to be updated a little more often. You can update apps through there. Interestingly, though, there's a third place, and it kind of ties into both of those things. And we had done an episode about this, I want to say sometime last year, but there's a utility called WinGet built into Windows, a command line utility. So it's not the friendliest thing in the world, but if you do a WinGet update, you will almost always find additional things, even though I just checked the store, and that because, and let's see, in both these cases, I believe these were both desktop apps. So I could run those apps, and then they would probably offer me the update, but I could also update them here directly. I'm not going to run this because I don't want to go through this, but the command line to do that is, the basic command line is this, -- all. It's not going to actually update Discord in this case, because it has this message here telling me there's a little issue, but it will update these other 2 if I were to do that, which I will not. Okay. And the next tip is for Microsoft Edge. So whether you're going to use Edge or not, it's important to secure and configure this browser correctly. On this PC, I actually am using Microsoft Edge. So the things that I care about the most here are the extensions. It's important on any browser to have the right security extensions. So for blocking trackers and for blocking ads, actually, Privacy Badger or uBlock Origin. Usually, I'm kind of testing this right now. I typically go with Privacy Badger, and then also AdBlock Plus. Plus, uBlock Origin is about to be deprecated and switched into something new because of some changes Google made to the extension engine there. But you want to have at least that sort of thing. I use a third-party password manager. In my case, Proton Pass. So I've got that configured and also pinned up here. Super useful. And then configuration is going to be, per person or whatever. But some of the things I know that I do all the time is go down deep into this menu and change this to something that is not Bing. That's up to you. But, Google, DuckDuckGo, whatever. I turn off all the Copilot sidebar stuff in Edge because if I use Copilot, I don't need it in the browser, and all it's doing is taking up space up here. And then there is, if we look for, I think it's like search for it. Sleeping tabs is actually a useful feature for saving RAM usage primarily. I turn it off. I find I use so many tabs and I don't like switching between them and having the wait for them to wake up. So I turn this off, but that's going to depend on the person. Also, let's see if I have it on this particular computer. I do not, but there is I might even be in the wrong place, but there is a new scareware protection feature in Edge. You have to enable manually. It's worth enabling, actually. So it's worth looking for that as well. If you're not going to use Microsoft Edge, you should go into that interface I described earlier and prevent it from starting in the beginning. And also go into the Settings app and make sure that the browser you want to use is the default app. So that's apps, default apps. And then, for example, I have Chrome here. Or I might have Chrome here. Let's find out. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. Sorry. And then select this, click as, set as default. So you can do it that way. We've talked a lot about the problems with this. It doesn't work 100% of the time. If you launch a story from widgets, for example, or from search highlights, it's still going to run Edge. But for the most part, that does what you want it to do. Okay. So since we're on an app that comes with Windows, the next few tips are about other apps that come with Windows, right? So I mentioned PhoneLink. I don't like it to run at startup, but I do use PhoneLink. And the reason you use PhoneLink, well, there's a lot of reasons actually, but whether you have an iPhone or an Android phone, it's really nice for accessing your messages and calls while you're on the computer. We can type, right? So message comes, maybe a text message comes in, you can respond to it from here. We've talked a lot about PhoneLink. I think we're going to talk about it soon again, but the short version is that it's much more full-featured on Android. It's especially full-featured if you have a Samsung flagship phone, and you get some basic features with the iPhone, and although that is getting better. So even on the iPhone, you're going to get basic message and call support. Super important. I think that's the greatest reason.
Okay, I'm stopping this here, and part of the reason is it's now just past 9 o'clock. You're supposed to do that. You do a copy.
Yeah.
Do a save of your chat, and you get the whole link, and you can do what you want to with it, when you want to. But you don't do it while you're in the friggin' meeting. At any rate, generally speaking, things didn't go quite as good as I had hoped for tonight's meeting. Ron went a little bit longer than I had hoped, and our general discussions also took up additional time. But just to give you an idea of what this looks like, as you can see here, this goes on and on and on and on. I had it real big, cut it down to about 45, and just the last several days I've added so many to it, it's not funny. But
Tim, is this supposed to be already in chat?
Yes.
It isn't.
Hang loose, because I did have it sent to chat. Hang loose. I gotta get things out of. What the heck? Guess what? I could be wrong, but I have a sneaky suspicion I've somehow shut down my chat. I mean my connection to Zoom. That's what I think happened. By accident. Because sometimes these windows close when you don't want them to. Well, let me get that back up. Oh, drop dead. As the host, ringing the doorbell. Somebody wants in. And, okay.
Somebody's coming in at 9 o'clock?
After 9 o'clock. Yeah, it didn't, it must have died before it got all put out there.
Yeah, it's not there yet.
Oh, it got out. Well, it was going out, but it ended up dying.
It ended up out in the
ether.
ether.
When I closed the connection.
Yep.
Oh, now, wait a second here. I can't. What the heck? I think I'm having more problems with Zoom. I'm serious when I say that. Because this thing, it looks like it crapped out when I tried to do the sending of the material. Zoom is really cutting people's throats, and I'm not sure if they really give a hoot. I'm getting the impression they don't. Yeah, record yourself. Chat. Yeah, that's what it's doing. Every time I try and put out the file, this thing is taking a crash dive on cutting off the Zoom. Yep, just did it again. I'm not kidding. It's a 22K file, and it's every time I put it out there, Zoom is killing it.
Wow.
So what I'm going to have to do, anybody who wants it that I don't have the email address for, you're going to have to let me know what your email address is. Aldo, I'm not positive I've got your current one, so I would suggest you send it. If there's anybody else, I think Bert, if you want it, and Dennis and Bob, I have your information. So Aldo's probably the only one that I might have to have somebody send me an email address, and I'll have to email it to you guys because Zoom is not playing nice. I don't know what the problem is, but I've sent enough error reports that hopefully it takes them 10,000 lifetimes to get through them all. Is there anything else that anybody's got they want to bring up at this time?
You want me to reply back to your invite for today's meeting to get my email, or you have it handy?
I'm pretty certain I have yours, like I
Okay.
just said moments ago.
Okay.
And but Aldo's, I'm not sure I got the current one because he doesn't come that often. And Bob I have, and Bert I have. The other thing I want to bring up, Thursday night should be the Northwest group with Ed Keating, which is basically technology with one small presentation. It's mostly discussion. And a week from tonight is the Linux SIG, and it better run a lot better than what happened here so far tonight. And so I'm gonna say, basically, I'm gonna put this list out on the chat so that if you want a copy, let's save that, and I'm gonna get this over to stop sharing. Okay. If there's any last questions that while I'm getting the chat ready, go ahead and speak up. Nobody's got any issues, huh? I grant you, this didn't go as smooth as I had hoped.